Alright guys, welcome back to Frugal Homestead. So today we're going to do a garden update, and it's not pretty, guys. We've been getting decimated by deer, rabbit, domestic rabbits that have been let loose, groundhogs, actually even the chipmunks destroyed a bunch of our strawberries. There's just no winning this year, and it has taught me that I'm done. We're going to put up a whole fencing system for next year, raised beds, concrete bases, the whole 9 yards. We're just gonna have to get like that, and the reason that is because there's less grown food around here. A lot of our neighbors are getting older, they stopped doing gardens. A lot of people that used to do gardens have moved away, and different people have moved in. Some people just don't want the headache of it anymore, and I can understand that. But the problem is when you lock in an area and the domestic food sources get smaller and smaller, and nature is just getting bigger and bigger, they decimate you. They literally come in and eat the whole crop down, as you will see. Now, we have other things that are flourishing, other things we have planted closer to the house that my dogs can keep on and chase animals away from. So come along, let me share what's going on with our garden. All right, let's start off right here. You can see these grapes are just going crazy with the leaves, but what I want to show you is right here. Look at those, guys. Now, we have a new resource, which is these leaves, because we went on a trip and we went to a Mediterranean place and they were using these leaves to wrap up rice and other things. Now, we're going to find out how to do it. We're going to learn how to do it. We're going to do it ourselves, and we'll bring you guys a video of how to do it, because utilizing these leaves is great, because as the grapes grow, you cut off the biggest leaves, use them for a dinner or something, and it allows a little more light to the plant. Now, this big mamma jamma is Missy's prized tomato plant, and as you can see, it's starting to come on full tilt. Now, recently I went down and got some more compost and cut up a bunch of comfrey leaves to throw down there, just to try to keep the bed to hold a little more moisture. The edge of the bed broke off, so now the water when it rains just rolls off. So hopefully that'll soak up like a sponge, and this guy will go crazy growing. Now, because this plant is here, we have no worries about the deer coming up here and eating off of it, or any other animal, because that's the dog's backyard. They have a door there. If they hear something outside, they instantly come out and bark. So planting them close to the house keeps the animals away, but we can't plant everything right here. So let's move on. All right, and we are at our first batch of raspberries, which have come on. And I gotta get out here and pick because they are going crazy. I mean, look at that, guys. Tell me that's not pretty. Now, all of these are raspberries through here. And as you can see, they're all bearing fruit just beautifully. And as we make our way down the fence row here, you can see these blackberries are actually coming on pretty strong. I give it about a week and a half if we get another rain or two, and these guys will be ready to go 100%. We actually already have some starting to get big and fill out. And in the final backyard bed, more raspberries. And these guys are definitely ready to go. And I'll tell you, I could sit out here all day and pick these and eat them. And trust me, my granddaughter can too. A good example of plants being killed. But as you can see, we're not even going to get anything really off this guy this year, because the squirrels have already been up in there stripping them down. Alright, and this is a prime example of what I'm talking about. All this was planted with beans. And then if you look down, you might see 1, 2, 3, That's it. That's all I see. So what happened is they all popped up, and then the deer and a groundhog would come in here and just eat them. So what happened was Missy came back through, weeded it, left any plants she could, and planted some vine crawling squash, some zucchini, and I believe another row of beans. But it's pretty clear, no matter what we do, they're just coming in and hitting it. Now, they haven't yet destroyed my little tomato plants, but they are struggling. They are definitely struggling. So I'm gonna have to come out here and top these out with some compost and water them in the evening and see if we can get them taken off. But we do have a little blossom. Now these are romaine tomatoes, so these plants won't get super tall. They'll just thicken up here. All right, so this patch we didn't do anything with. We didn't even try this year. And they're producing some small ones. And if you look, you can find them in there ready to go, ripened up. This bed is going to get completely moved this year. All right, so this is where the real carnage happened. I'm not gonna even bother weeding this out now because this was all planted and all the plants had come up and they were just starting to get ready to flower and produce fruit. These are all bush beans. And as you can see, the deer came in and just ate the tops right off of them, or they ripped the entire plant out. It's a really bad scene. I mean, they're all that way. And the more you look around, the more you can see the actual devastation. The plant's just chawed up. And I mean, there was just lines and lines of plants like that. We're at the point now where there's not a whole lot we can do with this section. So we're gonna let what's there come up and hopefully it'll keep the deer out of the other areas. Now, we are starting to see some zucchini life here. There's 2 rows, one there and one here, that have done quite well. I do need to come in and weed them back, but I try not to, because if you weed them too much, it's basically pointing the deer at them so that when they start to fruit, they'll just come in and start eating on them. So we leave a little grass up around them, kind of trying to hide them. And this is an example of why you don't actually weed out an area, because then they come in and they will eat every single one of them. So we clean weeded this and they came in the next night and just ate all the plants out of it. So it makes it extremely hard to want to come out here and weed these gardens and take care of them, just to know all that hard work just gets decimated. I mean, I can't even imagine how many hours of work and seed we just lost. It just comes to a point where you're going to have to make some hard decisions, which is why I think a lot of people around here just gave up on doing gardens. So my plan is to enclose this whole area and put in probably a 6-foot high fence with concrete at the bottom and make it out of stuff that will never rot. So if I use posts, they'll be covered in silicone roof coating so that they never leave. Or I may do block of some kind, I'm not sure. But I gotta do something because this is not working. Now, on to my saving grace, because this thing is going to yield a heck of a lot of fruit this year, and that is our Katana Berries. And anybody who thinks organic fertilizer doesn't work, there you go. When done correctly and given time, this is what you get. Now, as you can see, they're starting to turn red, which is a really good sign. They'll turn like a purplish almost when they're fully ready. But man, guys, look at all of them. tell me this is not going to be a massive crop. And we will have to do a lot of canning and a lot of eating and a lot of ice cream and many other things with it. Now, unfortunately, my wife hasn't got out here to cut these away, but I hope we can cut these shoots and have them take off and then be able to dig these up to make a whole second bed of them right here. That way next year we can double this crop, but more so I want to split a bunch of these off and start giving them to some of our friends, because these things do really well and they're not hard to take care of and they yield a lot of fruit. And I know a lot of our friends who'd want one or two of these just to put in their backyard, just to have something to enjoy. Now I'm gonna back into this plant for scale. All right, now I'm in the plant. Look at the scale of this thing, guys. Now my ground is not very good, but when you amend it correctly, it is actually pretty amazing what you can do. It's been a rough year this year. I'll be honest, guys. Having all this stuff get decimated makes me really not even want to do it. But I know in my head that if I take the time to do something correctly, then I can beat anything. Now, I still will have plants out that nature can take its, piece of or share of, but I cannot lose whole crops to nature deciding it wants to eat all my food. Another big problem this year is they planted soybean down over the hill. It's a soybean year, and it's not their fault. They've got to rotate their crops. But the year they do that, my crops always get absolutely decimated, because that's the last thing the deer want to eat. Now, I want to do a side note of something that we really don't mention much in our garden updates. And that is this line of trees right here. Honestly, we had written a lot of them off. If I remember correctly, that's an apple, that's a plum, that's a plum, and those are all apples. Now all these apples are ones that got dug up from my dad's. As you can see, they're kind of stringy and they usually get chewed up by bugs pretty good. But this year, I put a little bit of compost around the bottoms of them and then have been like top coating them every little bit with just throwing it on there. I don't even really try. But see how much healthier they look and how much more they're starting to grow? They're starting to take off. This little guy lives in the shadows because it doesn't get enough sunlight from there or up there. So we're gonna do a little trimming back here along the road. Try and let them a little more light in these guys more hours a day. But they are coming back. And that's nice. When you can get trees to start returning and coming back and you don't lose them, when they're as stringy as these guys are, that's pretty amazing. That's a good sign that you can really put a little effort in and bring them back. And the plums absolutely love that compost. So it's pretty clear we need to make some changes next year. And it's gonna cost us a little, but I think it's gonna save us a lot in the long run. I have plans to put in a lot of raised beds. That way when we get older, it'll be easier for us to get down to garden. I think that I'm gonna go ahead and just do full blown, do the fence, do the raised beds, build up a big pile of compost the rest of this winter, and keep it turning all winter long. That way when the spring comes, we'll load up those beds, have the fence up, keep all the wildlife out, and be able to grow on a scale that will sustain our family. Because I also want to do some like winter squash, like butternut and stuff. That way we can keep them throughout the winter, just like we did last winter with some we got, and be able to really offset our food cost and be eating healthier, because everything we grow here is 100% organic. No pesticides, no chemical fertilizers. And I really feel that that's the opportunity for us to save even more money in the situation we're in, because it comes down to a point where you just optimize your life so well, there's not a lot of room to cut any more corners. So Doing this means I've got a safe, healthy food source that I can depend on every year to save me a bunch of money. But that said, I do have to hide because I'm eating all my wife's raspberries. And she's gonna get really mad at me for not sharing. So shush, don't tell. Come back and see how much of this stuff we can salvage before the deer and the animals eat it all up. And that said, before we go, for everyone that knows him, if you look inside there, you can see all of those blackberries waiting to ripen. Those are Apollo's share. And Apollo will go over and lick them and put them in his mouth until he finds out they're ready, and then he'll start eating them. So don't eat the berries from the inside of the fence unless you want Apollo drool on them. Isn't that right, boy? Hey, ain't that right? Is that right? Those your berries? Huh? Yep. So, if you haven't already, and I don't know why you wouldn't have, go down, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you see all of our upcoming videos. Make sure you go give us a like, hit us up with a comment, let us know how your garden's doing this year. Are you guys getting hammered by wildlife? Are you guys pulling in a great harvest? Let us know down in the comments. We'd love to hear about it and make it a discussion. With that said, I will see you guys in the next one.